we have all of the knowledge we need to do this. It's just a matter of sort of taking it and applying it. So we're going to be talking again about variables and input till we're blue in the face. We're going to take all those things that we've done over the last 2 weeks, and we are going to apply them here. So we want to write and test a program that accepts the user's name as text and age as a number as input. And then it should output a sentence containing the user's name and age. And here's an example of what it should look like. Okay. So this is the first time we're being tasked with just writing a program cold, right? The last couple of examples we've had kind of like starter code and that kind of thing. But we do not have that this time. So what I like to do before I just start coding, and you could just start writing code and crossing your fingers and hoping it works. What I like to do is I like to sort of make myself an outline. I'm going to use comments to do this. Close my outline. Now, you do not have to copy this down. It's up to you. This is how I like to operate usually. So let's figure out what we have to do. So we have to write and test program that accepts the user's name as text and age as a number as input. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get the user's name as text, right? So first thing we need to do is get some kind of input. Say user's name is text. Second thing we need to do is get their age as a number as input. So step 2 is still getting input. Age as a number. And the third thing that we want to do is output a sentence with their name and age. And obviously we see this is not going to just be some random sentence, it has to be a nice sentence. So say print. Print again is our word for display in Python. Nice sentence. So we got 3 steps here. Get input. I'll come back to that in a second. Name is text, get input, age is a number, print a nice sentence with their name and age. I'm going to add one thing to both of these. Anytime we get any kind of input in Python and we want to do something with it, we need to save that information, right? If we don't save it, it just goes into the ether and it's gone forever. We want to make sure that we actually save that input. So I'm going to add, save it to a variable. Same thing here. So I'm going to get input, user's name is text, and I'm going to save it to a variable. I'm going to get more input, user's name, age is a number, save it to a variable. And I'm going to print a nice sentence using their name and age, these 2 variables. So we've got our outline. We've got 3 steps. So first one, get input, user's name is text, and save it to a variable. So let's start by deciding what we want our variable to be named. I want it to be something meaningful. And since it's going to be the user's name, I'm just going to use the word name. That seems fairly straightforward, right? You could do first name, you could do full name, whatever, but I'm just going to use the word name as my variable. I want to assign it or save it. So I'm going to use the equal sign. Again, just like Excel, anytime you use any kind of formula, anything, use an equal sign. In Python land, this equal sign is used for assignment or saving. So we're saying name is. It basically means is. So name is. And we need to get input from the user. So how do we do that? Why with the input command, of course. So name equals input. And remember, input means basically that we're going to get a little prompt in our terminal. The user, whoever the user is going to get a prompt in their terminal or wherever they're running this program. And they are going to enter something. Now, the user doesn't know, if I would just run this as is right now, I just get a blinking cursor over here. Remember, in the middle here, I'm the programmer. On the right, I'm the user. I'm the person using the program. So if I saw this, right, I would just see a blinking cursor and I don't know what to do. So I need to tell the user what I want from them. So I'm going to say, enter your name. And again, I need to use these parentheses. It's just Python syntax. And I'm putting the quotations here because this is just straight text. Anytime we want to display something as straight text, no variables, no nothing, I put it in quotations here. And it will display exactly what is in the quotations. So I've got my variable, I'm getting input, and I'm telling the user, enter your name. If I run it, now it says enter your name. Oh, okay. All right. So, and obviously it's not doing anything else yet because I haven't told it to. We have done step 1 here, and we look okay here. So let's take a look at our second one here. We need to get input again. And this time we're going to get the user's age as a number and save it to a variable again. So I'm going to do very much the same thing that I did for the first one here, but obviously I need a different variable. And I also want to specify it as a number. So I'm going to use the word age for my variable because that's what we're getting. Again, you could technically use whatever you wanted, but we want our variables to be meaningful, as we talked about last week. So I'm going to use age because that's what we want. And again, I'm going to use the equal sign, which means is, so age is. Now, they say the user's age as a number. So this time, I'm going to get specific. Now, we have 2 types of numbers we know. We have the integer, which is the whole number, and we have floating point or float numbers or decimal numbers. Now we could technically choose either one, but I haven't celebrated a half birthday since I was like under the age of 10. So I'm going to go with whole numbers, which means we're going to use integer. I also don't really like to celebrate birthdays now. There comes a certain age where you don't want to celebrate birthdays anymore. You'll know. So yeah, so we're going to use an integer. Now, in order to do this, we need to tell Python, hey, make sure this number is an integer, and make sure this input is an integer. So we're going to use int, int. And then from here, we can kind of carry through the rest of our stuff. So we said, okay, it's going to be an integer. Then we're going to do the same thing we did up here. So input, because we want to get something from the user. We want to get information. And again, every time you use one of these, we need to open up a parentheses. And every time you open a parentheses, you need to close it. We're going to look at that again in a second. And once again, we want to give the user a prompt, because if we just said enter your age, or if we just leave it as is right now, it's not going to do anything. So if I were to run it, we'll say enter your name. And then I hit enter, and then now the cursor's blinking, so I know it's looking for something. And I say, what do you want? And I get an error. And the reason for that is I have said I'm looking for an integer. So Python says you have a value error. And then for int, and it basically tells me this is what you entered. You said, what do you want? And that's invalid because it's not an integer, obviously. So we want the user to know that they should be entering a number, basically. So I'm going to put a little prompt here. I'm going to say enter your age. So we have our variable. It's going to be an integer. We're telling Python, make sure that you check that this is a whole number. Get some input from the user and tell them that we want that to be their age. So we build this from the outside in, but you can read it kind of from the inside out. So you're going to see a prompt. Again, everything in the green here is text. So you'll see a prompt that says enter your age. We're going to wait for the user to put something in to input. We're going to check that that input is an integer or a whole number, and then we're going to assign it equals to the variable age. And with the parentheses real quick, just as a, whenever you put these parentheses in here, you'll see that they, you want to make sure if you open one, you close it. It actually highlights, puts a little box around them for you, which is actually kind of nice. So if I put my cursor by this parenthesis, it says, hey, the closing one is over here. Same thing with this. If I put it here, puts a closing one. So if I somehow end up with like an extra parenthesis and I put my cursor by it, it doesn't have a box because there's no partner for it. So handy little thing. And actually, since I just did it, again, since we've specified this is going to be an integer, if I enter anything else, if I enter a name here, for instance, it's going to error out and tell me that this is not an integer. I think we just did this, but we're doing it again. Okay. So I think we look pretty good here. I'm just going to stick with my most recent. I don't know. How old do I want to be? Let's go back to 22. That was it. No. Let's do like 24. Yeah, 24. Let's go back to 24. Because all we've done so far is we've created two variables and we've saved some info to them, but we're not doing anything with that info yet, right? So no errors, so looks good. So let's finish it out. So we have step 1 is good. Step 2, we're good, check mark. And last, we want to print a nice sentence with the user's name and age. So to display text in Python, I'm going to use print command, right? And I need to open close parentheses because, again, this is just how Python, this is just Python's punctuation or syntax. So I want to print, and I want to print a nice sentence. Now, the first thing I want to print is the name. So am I going to use quotations for this? So is use my name variable. So I'm just going to write name. Then I'm going to put a comma because, again, it's Python syntax. And I'm going to put a space for my own sanity. And then this is the sentence that they want us to have. So they want us to have name is age years old, basically. Put up here. We got two fill in the blanks as you were, and we're going to use our variables to fill in these blanks. So the first one is name, and then I have an actual exact word I want to put here, which is. So I do have to put this in quotations because I don't have a variable for this. This is just part of the sentence that I want to print out. So I'm going to put is in quotations, and then another comma. And then our second blank here, we're going to use age. And then same thing. I'm going to put another comma, lots of commas. And then the last part of my sentence here. So quotations again. And then years old. So my sentence is blank years old. Anything that is not a fill in the blank is going to go in quotations. And then the blanks are going to be filled in with our variables. So I have name, and again, this has to be exactly the same, and age, which also has to be exactly the same. So let's run it and see what happens. I'm not going to use me this time because I don't want, well, let's see, so 24, let's go back to 16, but with everything I know now. Most awesome sorcerer is 16 years old. Okay.